to begin with, so that created a little bit of a problem. For some reason, they had been taught that if Christians came, they would steal their children, and they would force them to eat pork, and they would kill their children and things like that. So they had a real fear of Christians. And so this is a new thing for them to see Christian people come from all over the world who weren't stealing their children, weren't forcing them to eat pork, weren't even converting them. Our team did not go there to convert people. We went there to help people. I think because we were so new that they were so curious, and they would always come, the villagers would come from all over just to see us and to see white people. And for me, I felt accepted when I worked a lot with the children, and one day I was teaching them my name, and I told them it was Robert. And I rolled the R, and then they would say Robert, and I would say, no, it's Robert. And they go, oh, Robert. And I go, no, it's Robert. And for some reason, my name just spread throughout the whole village. And so wherever I'd go throughout that entire day and for the upcoming days, whether I was on the other side of the village or whether I was in the village, there would always be these kids going, Robert, hello, Robert, hello, Robert. They would just go out of their ways to smile and to play with us. And I'd play games with them with a translator. And we had a soccer clinic one day. And one of the team members that came with us was a soccer player. And so with our translator, he was able to take them out in the field. And by the way, to my amazement, in the middle of this village was a huge soccer field. Right in the middle of the village, a full-size soccer field. And so we were able to play with them and kick the ball around. And we wanted to give a soccer ball to the village as a gesture of our presence there. But we found out that there were two villages there, and so we knew that there'd be a problem if we gave the ball to one village. There might be some, jealousy and envy going on. So we promised that we would come back the next day and give another ball to the other village. And we met with the village chief. Actually, he wasn't there, but his wife was there. And we presented the ball to her. And of course, we always had 30 or 40 kids around us at all times, and everybody was happy and shouting Robert. I think it was a cultural breakthrough for them as well as it was for us.
What is the purpose of you eating with your hands?
The purpose of eating with my hands is because that's what's expected here, and that's how people enjoy their food, and we like to honor them by following their traditions.
Okay, and show us again how it's done. Very good. What is this?
Spicy traditional, spicy food.
They had so much to give to us. They were the the source of my energy, the source of my being able to make it through. And as far as us giving them anything, I think our presence was enough. I think that they knew that we were from America, and like a lot of countries, they think America is this, you know, fantastic place where everybody's super rich. They just assume we were all wealthy.
They don't see too many poor white people. All they ever see are people like us that come in with our tourism dollars or our short-term mission things with our clothes that we regard as you know, safari clothes, camping clothes, and yet if they look careful, they realize that, boy, that's some pretty nice stuff there, and it's obviously fairly new, and they're you know, the things they bring are pretty nice, and they came from the other side of the world, and I can't afford the bus trip into Jakarta. I can't afford the ferry to go see my brother 100 miles away, and yet here they come flying in on these airplanes from the other side of the world, and the relative wealth is just incredible.
One day I was talking to a little girl, and she said, "We really like your skin. We like the color of your skin, and we want to have skin like yours." And I said, "Why?" I said, "Your skin is so beautiful. It's just tan. It's no." And they go, "Our skin is dirty. Look, it's dirty. We don't like it. We want it to be white, like all the pictures that we've been seeing." They had envy for the way Americans or Europeans look like. And I thought that was kind of sad. I actually felt kind of sad about that, and somewhat embarrassed by it.
How do you suggest you set it? How would you like to utilize the space? Do you like the entrance next idea?
This is the pharmaceutical area. Dr. Doug and Dr. Matt, pharmaceutical specialist in the United States. Now, can I see your pharmaceutical license, please, sir?
I'm a pharmaceutical technician now. Slash this, slash that.
Some of the things that we couldn't address was the trauma that some of the people had. For example, we were in Sigley one day, and the mother had brought this little girl who was probably 2 or 3 years old, and ever since the tsunami had hit, she had chosen not to walk anymore. She just clung to her mother. And so what the doctor did was, the doctor picked up the little girl and carried her across the floor and set her down about 30 feet away. And then, of course, the little girl started crying and ran to the mother. And he did that to demonstrate to the mother that the child needs to walk and that she can walk, because the mother thought she couldn't walk anymore.
The real hammering of the individual stories. The gentleman that comes and is complaining of chronic headaches, and you realize it's because he can't sleep, and you realize it's because he lost his wife and all 6 children. Or the young 14-year-old who is now on his own because his parents are gone. Or the 3 young ladies that are now their own family because they happened to be inland when the tsunami hit, and they lost all of their families, and now all they have is each other. That takes its toll.
One particular story that really sticks in my head that I want to share, and that is that a mother and a father brought a little girl in. She was probably about 10 years old, and she had cerebral palsy. And the parents didn't know what cerebral palsy was. They thought that some kind of a curse had come on her through the dog. They're very superstitious about dogs. So all these years they thought the dog had brought a curse into this child. And the sad part was that they actually thought that we had medicine to cure this child. And I remember filming that as well and watching this and feeling the sadness for the parents. The doctor had to give them this new information that this was cerebral palsy and that it was not curable. And they received that information, but I don't think that they actually believed it. And then they picked her up and they carried her out of the facility. And for me, that was very sad to see that.
You feel very small and very inadequate, and you realize that all you have to offer is love and prayer and a willing ear. At Banda Aceh, the people just needed somebody else to hear their story, because all the survivors have only survivors to talk to. And so, yes, they understand, but they can't absorb the angst to the same extent that someone who's coming relatively intact. I mean, they have no psychological reserves to tap from their neighbors, because their neighbors are hurting just as much. But when they tell you and they can see in your eyes that, oh my gosh, oh, that's terrible, I can't imagine what you must be going through, and acknowledge that to them, that in of itself is therapeutic.
I was visiting a storekeeper, and I was talking to him a little bit. I studied a little bit of Achenese language, so I could talk about the weather, but that ran out quickly, and my translator was nowhere to be found. When I was talking to him, his daughter came in from the back room carrying a girl who was probably about 2 years old, and it turned out that this little girl, during the tsunami that came in through the city, was washed down the street, and this family reached into the water and plucked her out of the water to save her life. Her parents were killed and her entire family was killed, but they adopted her. And then as we talked some more, he began to feel more comfortable with me. And then at that time, Dr. Greg Ekbom came in, and we started talking to him, and he felt more comfortable with us. He invited us into the back of his house, and we sat down on the couch. And so I had an interpreter, a doctor, myself, and he started telling his story about his mother, who had really bad cancer.
Operasi ke Medan, bilang 1.000 orang itu.
Oh, dia sudah masuk Medan?
Enggak, belum.
Sekarang masih di Sigli.
His name is Ansar. His mom lives in Sigli, which is where we're going next. And she was able to save herself in the tsunami by climbing up on something. And after that, when they had a clinic by some other American doctors, they discovered that she had a tumor in her breast.
And she had been diagnosed as having cancer, but she didn't want to be operated on anybody in Banda Aceh. She didn't trust any of the doctors, and she basically chose to die. So, fate as it was, Dr. Greg Ekbom is a cancer specialist. His specialty is mastectomies, and this is what she needed to have, was a mastectomy. And so we share with the shopkeeper that Greg was the doctor, but we had a logistic problem. He said that she was about 50 or 60 miles away, and we didn't know exactly where that was. And we asked the question, where is she? And he responded, and he said, she's in Sigli. And we all sat back in our chairs, and we said, well, you're not going to believe this. Our team is leaving for Sigli tomorrow. And so we went to Sigli, and the doctor met with her, and he performed a mastectomy on her, and a successful mastectomy. And to this day, there's been plenty of follow-up, so we know she's still alive. Probably on the third or fourth day that we were there, we went downtown again by Banda Aceh on the coast, and we had seen this one hut that had been erected, just probably like an 8 by 8, made out of just whatever he could find, And so I was very interested in this guy. He was standing outside, and so I walked over to him with my interpreter and began to talk to him. And he had shared his story with me that he had been out of the city that day when the tsunami hit. He was doing some errands. When he returned, he came to find out that his entire family was killed. All the houses were gone. He couldn't even find a neighborhood. He couldn't find where the house was at first. And the news of losing his parents and I think seven or eight brothers and sisters, he was the only survivor. Unlike maybe a lot of Americans, including myself, I think if that would have happened, I would probably still be laying on the ground, emotionally distressed that we'd probably have to seek a psychologist for 20 years, and our lives could be ruined at that point. But I think because these people are so strong and they really move forward, they have a tendency to move forward, and that spirit was captured in this young guy. He had a little motorcycle, and he'd go and he would just do errands, and he would carry things around for people, and they would pay him. And he just had a real positive attitude about rebuilding and staying there. And then I happened to have some Indonesian money in my pocket that my daughter-in-law, who's from Indonesia, her name is Leah, and she had given me some money to take with me to give to some of the people there. So after we were talking to him for a while, I pulled out this Indonesian money, and I said to him, I want to give this to you and really help you out, because you're such a hard worker, you're such a positive person. And I said, this money has gone all the way around the world. It came from Indonesia, it went to Los Angeles, and then it was sent to me in Wisconsin, and I flew to Indonesia. And I said, so it's made a full cycle, and I'm giving it back to you. This is your money. And so we took him and we bought him some fuel for his, I think he had a generator actually. And so that was this, again, that was a manifestation of the spirit of these people. I've never seen a culture like this before in my life.
Fortunately, on this trip, we did have evenings with some quiet time alone, and then reflection as a group, and just listening to each other's stories of what had transpired during the day was therapeutic and cathartic. And then you have to pay close attention to your own physical well-being, as far as trying to eat and drink well and try and get enough sleep so the next day you can mount the next set of tragedies. And for someone, for a team like this, 2 weeks was emotionally a bit of the limit. Much more than that, and we would have had to have, I think, a significant mental health break in the middle of a trip. If someone was to mount, say, a 6-week or 2-month trip, you've got to build in some rest time to let your heart deal with matters as well as your body.
We all had those same questions that everybody has: is why God? All these innocent children, all these women, all these grandpas, all these grandmas, the little wealth that they had, whatever animals they collected, whatever property they owned, whatever land, whatever boats they had, fishing that they did. How could God allow all these people to be killed? But for me, the question was answered. And I received a real peace, a supernatural peace to see it from a different vantage point. And I don't claim to understand at all what happened there. But some things just happen on this planet, and that was one of them. And I was seeing the results of that. I was seeing the results of a culture being opened up to people outside their culture, being exposed to other people. And for me, it was definitely life-changing, very life-changing. It's still, a year and a half later, it's still changing my life. It's still humbling me.
I think for me, it's a case of something has happened. Now, God, how can I help? I can't change what happened, but I am in control of my response to what happened. And I had the opportunity to be able to go. I had a workplace that said, yes, by all means go. I had a family that was supportive of it. We had the financial and cognitive resources available. And so responsibility was there to go ahead and deliver that. I can't answer the why God does this happen. Oh, I saw all the TV things like everybody else. I know as tectonic plate shift and the physics of it all. But why so much suffering? That I can't address except in terms of, okay, there's need there. What is my responsibility to react to it?
They are making progress. It's not the progress. The term progress is relative. To us, if that had happened to downtown Waukesha, a year and a half later, the entire city would be rebuilt. It's not going to happen in Bangladesh. It's going to take 10 years. people are going to live in tents for 5 years or 10 years. Progress is very slow. But organizations like the Saratsi organization, where they have organized teams of people and they hire local people and they're rebuilding the houses again from new foundations and using some of the old foundations, and they're building boats again as well. So it's coming alive again, and again the people in the village are impressed at the rest of the world, so they're bonding more with people who come and go there.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hari Purwanto, purser of this ride.
The hardest part for me was coming home. I thought that I was prepared to come home, but probably a good example is that we left Banda Aceh that morning. We flew to Singapore, and we spent the night in Singapore. So in the morning, I'm in a third world country with total devastation. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're standing in a mall in Singapore. And we're walking into a mall to meet some friends for dinner. And our whole team just froze in our tracks and walked at our front door. We saw this incredible materialistic world. All the teenagers had fantastic clothing and designer clothing and top of the line cell phones, and walking around and totally insensitive to everybody around them. And we kept thinking about how sensitive the people were in Banda Aceh. How the kids were so close to each other, and how the families were so close. And that weight of materialism was extremely overwhelming for us. We almost couldn't even go in there because the contrast was too much for us to bear, really. And then the trip home was equally as hard. To have people come up to me and say, kind of nonchalantly, "How was your trip to Banda Aceh or Indonesia?" Wow, it must have been